Hey everybody, how's it going? Brbteabreak here today with another World of Warcraft Battle for Azeroth video. Today we're checking out the Elemental Shaman. If you want to see other class changes in Battle for Azeroth, check out my channel where I have most of the classes covered and I'm adding a new one every single day. So the Elemental Shaman is a favourite of mine actually. Who cannot love the Elemental Shaman? You have these big old Hadoukens here, you summon elementals, you have the totems, it's all pretty good. And on live, the Elemental Shaman has lots of build diversity actually, in the way of stat priority and also talents, and depending on what talents you pick it changes your stats, and changes how you AoE. So it's a very unique class in that regard. Lots of classes have, set priorities, doesn't matter what build they kind of pick. But they've kind of thrown that on its head a little bit here. They've made all the popular talents and shoved them all into the same row, and now you have a bunch of new talents and line up with some crappy ones, and it's kind of a bit awkward in my opinion. They've also reduced the randomness of the Elemental Shaman. They've definitely cut back on the Maelstrom generation, but also the cost of abilities, but also the potential gains you can get. So it's much more cookie cutter now, it's much more basic, but the flair is still there in my opinion. Firstly, we'll go over baseline abilities, then what we lost with the artifact weapon being gone, and then we'll go through some talents. So baseline. Firstly, you got a brand new ability in a way. Capacitated Totem now is baseline. On the live servers in Legion, it is a talent, a 45-second talent, which is a stun. Now it's a 1 minute stun, 1 minute cooldown, sorry, and does 3-second stun. So the stun duration is much lower than the live server, but all AoE stuns have been nerfed in the game, and the only classes that have an AoE stun in the game as we speak are Monk, Warlock, and Shaman, which is pretty major because Warlock stun is a little bit slow because you have to cast it. The Chamois stun you have to do it early, but it's pretty quick, and the Monk one you have to be melee. So the Chamois one's pretty solid in my regard here actually, and one of the few classes with a stun, so that's pretty good to have. Next, we have Flame Shock has been changed. So on the live servers, Flame Shock costs between 0 and 20 Maelstrom, starts at a 15-second duration, and increases depending on how much Maelstrom you spend, up to 30 seconds. Well, now it's 18 seconds by default, no Maelstrom cost, but same kind of range, same cooldown, same kind of damage. So, this has good and bad things about it. One good thing is that you don't have to, calculate when's the best time to Flame Shock depending on your Maelstrom, etc, etc. But the biggest thing that's a negative is that you have to cast the ability much more often now. Because on live you cast it, every, let's say 25 seconds on average, 26 seconds. Well, now you have to cast it every more than 18 seconds, which really sucks. And you have to keep this up at all times because you need those crit lava bursts and you need those instant lava bursts through lava surge. So that kind of sucks in my opinion, but early days possibly. Next, now all your abilities have got their Maelstrom destroyed. So Lightning Bolt is now 6 Maelstrom, it's 8 on the live servers. Chain Lightning is 3 Maelstrom now, it's currently 6 on the live server. And Lava Burst is now 8, where it's 12 in Legion. So, you lost a third of it on your Lava Burst, 25% on Lightning Bolt, and half of it on Chain Lightning. This is massive, because obviously the class is based around you generate your resources through your generators, and then spend it for things like Earthquake and Earth Shock. And now you do that much less often now, which kind of sucks and goes against the whole class. You feel like you're spamming your filler spell for a very large portion of the time, and I guess Lava Burst isn't really a filler spell because it does really good damage, but it still kind of sucks having a low generation Maelstrom gain here, especially when it's supposed to be a cool moment to get a Lava Surge proc and you gain very little besides the raw damage. Now, to counteract this in a way, Earth Shock has been reworked. So Earth Shock on live is between 10 and 100 Maelstrom and increases in damage depending on the cost. Now it's always 60. Which is, in my opinion, a really nice change, because on live you have a lot of situations where you're like, do I cast Earth Shock here? If I do, and I need to reapply Flame Shock in a second from now, I can't because I need to reapply Flame Shock at 20 Maelstrom, but then I'll use too much of my Maelstrom, blah 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 blah. Now it's much nicer, much cleaner. It's probably a bit more generic, but I think that's okay for this spell, and before it's a little bit complex for no good reason anyway. We also have Earthquake has been changed severely. So on live, Earthquake does really bad damage. And it also cost 50 Maelstrom. Now it costs 75 Maelstrom and does a lot more damage. Obviously the numbers are squashed here, but if you do a damage breakdown in a fight, you'll see Earthquake does a lot more damage. One problem with Earthquake still is that it's physical damage, so it doesn't scale with your mastery obviously, but also it doesn't scale with some of your talents right now, which is pretty major in my opinion, and a major point holding Elemental back, especially because this costs so much, 75 Maelstrom. Like, this ability takes so long to start up, you'd think you get some really good value out of it, or you know, it'd be more impactful in many ways, and obviously it's impactful, but his animation's broken. I don't think you should have lightning balls on my side. I haven't played Elemental Shaman in a hot minute, but yeah, anyway. I'll try to show Earthquake off here. It looks really cool, but the damage just isn't there. Instant cast. But you see, that's pretty good damage. It's more damage than like lightning bolts, you know. Also, you gotta remember it has a chance to stun, which won't do on these target dummies, but chance to stun is not bad. It's like a micro stun, especially since I said before, lots of classes have lost their stun, so this could really be a massive thing for Elemental Shaman depending on the knockdown chance. Anyway, to the last change here, we now talk about Fire Elemental. This has got a massive rework, so the cooldown is now half the duration, or half the amount. It's 5 minutes on the live servers, 2.5 minutes here. On the live servers, it lasts for 1 minute, only lasts for 30 seconds here. And now we have a new effect, where while the Greater Fire Elemental is active, Flameshock generates 3 Maelstrom when it deals damage. Which is obviously really, really cool. So we'll put some Flameshocks here. Oh, wait for that cooldown, boys, wait for that cooldown. There we go. Summon our Elemental, and you see here, we'll start gaining... Oh, we're not in combat. It should be working. There we go, we got 3 tick there, you saw that. I think that might have been... game. Maybe it doesn't like target dummies. This is how, like, I've done some dungeons before the alpha, before the beta reset. It was actually quite good. It was very good. But, yeah, I can't really show it off. So this, I guess, makes up for you getting less Maelstrom by default, but it doesn't make up for it enough, because your Flame Strike tick's not that common, or not enough anyway. From what I could tell when I was doing dungeons, it did work on multiple targets. But yeah, it's interesting, because this is definitely a quality of life improvement. Having the Fire Elemental more often is good, because in dungeons, fights don't last that long, but also it fits better into things like heroism now. It fits into better potion ranges. Also, you don't always get like a whole minute duration of a Fire Elemental, so it's really awkward to use. But it's kind of a nerf also, because let's say most fights, it doesn't matter how long the fight, let's say the fight's 8 minutes long, 9 minutes long, whatever you want it to be. On live, that means you get 2 casts of the ability, and that gives you a 2-minute duration. On the alpha, or the beta now, sorry, you get 3 casts, which is 1.5 minutes. So, you're losing out. Doesn't matter, like, how much of the fight or what you're at, you're always going to lose duration now, because 5 minutes double duration, you're going to get more often, in a way. You're never really going to get a situation where you get extra casts of this. If the fight's, 4 minutes long, you would get 1 minute with this old elemental, and you'd get, again, 1 minute with the new elemental. Not even, because it wouldn't be back in time. So, it's a little bit strange, in my opinion. It works, it's better, it's definitely the right direction, but it's odd a little bit. Anyway, let's move on from that. Let's go to some of the awesome traits. So traits, we have lost them obviously. With that, we have lost our Stormcaller ability, and that kind of sucks. It means your burst is obviously a lot lower. It also means your Maelstrom gain is lower because you lost that awesome ability. You do have a talent option, but it is severely worse compared to the original Stormkeeper. We'll go through that for the talent section because it's a whole another can of worms. But just to note, Stormkeeper is not there by default anymore. When it comes to traits, you haven't lost too much actually. So for traits, we've lost Shamanistic Healing, which gave you a heal when you got low on HP. That's now a talent. Your other one is Elementalist, which is where you got a cooldown reduction on your Fire Elemental when you cast Lava Burst. So that's a small thing. You didn't get that much time off anyway, but a DPS loss, but it doesn't really matter too much in my opinion. And then Swelling Maelstrom was the biggest one, which is where you got an increase in the max amount of Maelstrom you actually had. So you'd have 125 compared to 100. That'd be really nice for this version of Shaman here, because then you could do back-to-back Earth Shocks. Because right now, well, you can't. So if you have to move, you only can cast one ability. You have 3 abilities you can choose between, I guess. You have Earth Shock, Frost Shock, and Flame Shock. The problem is Frost Shock has no damage, realistically. Earth Shock has a lot of damage, but costs 60 Maelstrom, and Flame Shock has a 6-second cooldown. You can reapply your totems if you use something like Totem Mastery, but that's about it. There's no more maintenance you can do as a character. It kind of feels a bit like a Boomkin in that way, where you have to reapply your dots while you're moving because you have nothing else to do. But Boomkins can stack up to 2-star surges. They can also have 2 dots to reapply, and they move much faster than Shamans. So, that's a Shaman for you. I kind of missed also, sorry, on the ability front. I forgot about the passives. So Lava Surge actually got buffed. Lava Surge now is 15% chance, where on the live server it's only a 10%, which is nice. Obviously, more Lava Surge is really cool. A lot more means more Lava Burst. It's one of your most iconic abilities, so I think that's a really nice change in my opinion. Would like to see it go higher maybe, but then it's a bit too OP on cleave fights. Then also we lost the amazing, not really, Elemental Focus. Elemental Focus was a buff you got when you crit, which is obviously always after something like a Lava Burst, and it made your next attack do 10% more damage. And what would happen is then you'd get a crit with your Lava Bolt, Lava Surge even, and then you'd like have to reapply your Flame Shock. And it meant a lot of time, if you ever looked at like the guides for Elemental Shaman, it'd be like, reapply your Flame Shock. And then number 2 be, reapply your Flame Shock if you have Elemental Focus. And reapplied only if you're above 20. But if you have Elemental Focus, you don't have to reapply Flame Shock, then do your Earth Shock. But if you don't have Elemental Focus, but you have enough to do Earth Shock, don't do Earth Shock unless, like, it's just a little bit too much. A little bit too much if. It's like a computer program here, like, if X happens, do Y. But it was a little bit too much of those things. So, yeah, I think it is better now. It is much more basic in many ways, but that means they can make the class more interesting and more complex in different ways, instead of just, you know, running a weaker and it tells you when to press the button. So that's all the basic abilities, that's all the traits. Let's go into the talents then. So hopefully the talents would, you know, speed up the class, make it a bit more unique to what we're used to, even though it's unique on the live servers, maybe some new options. And we want to fill up the holes we have. Well, the problem is, as I said at the beginning, all the popular good talents on the live server, or what we deem as good, are currently in the first 2 tiers. Echo of the Elements, Elemental Blast, Totem Mastery, and Aftershock. 4 of the most popular talents by far for the Elemental Shaman, no, it doesn't matter what build you pick, are now stuck within 2 talent lines and you have to pick between 2 of them out of the 4. This sucks really badly. Now, why this sucks, I think it works because the lines actually make sense, and at the same time, the new options we've gotten are quite cool also, but we don't have the new builds yet to work with them, so we'll see how that plays out. Anyway, we'll start at level 15 and go through the whole thing. So 15 here, you know Echo of Elements, you know Elemental Blast, they're exactly the same, nothing has changed. But we have a new one here, Expose Elements. Earthshock now increases the damage of your next lightning bolt on a target by 200%. So, this is just like a little buff. It doesn't matter too much, you don't really play around it. You might play around it with Stormkeeper, but it only gives you 2 hits of your ability, which isn't that big of a deal because lightning bolt doesn't do that much damage anyway. But, yeah, it's not a bad little talent there. I'm actually not showing it off, am I? I'm just casting. Let me try and get this talent real quick. Sorry, boys. Eventually, there we go. We'll do an Earthshock soon, maybe. We still need to generate the Maelstrom. We're not there yet. It's very slow, remember. Here we go. So we Earthshock here. We've got a buff on the target, and then we cast a Lightning Bolt. This gives you good swap potential. You saw how much damage it did. Was that a 1400 Lightning Bolt non-crit? Yeah, 2000 non-crit. That's pretty good damage. That's better than a crit. So, yeah. Good for target swapping. Not much else. Maybe you've got lots of, like, AoE and you still have some single target in there, possibly, but, I think Echo of Elements should be baseline. I'll talk about this later, but I think a lot of these talents we have should just be baseline, and that way you could add more interesting ones, and it'll also be less cluttered. Level 30, we have a brand new one also, Master of the Elements. Casting Lava Burst increase the damage of your next Nature or Frost spell by 20%. Okay, boys, we're getting somewhere here. So you can stack these together for increased lightning bolt damage, which isn't that good. The main way of doing this is just increasing the damage of your Earth Shock. So you know, oh, didn't do it again. So pretty much your Lava Burst, and then your next Earth Shock is going to do a bunch of damage. You kind of probably want to hold Earth Shock here a little bit, just so you make sure you always Earth Shock with this, because you really want the bonus. And you don't like you have to use Earth Shock on cooldown, because there's no cooldown to it, it's just like a resource cost. So here you see we're wasting it on the Chain Lightnings, which isn't too crazy. We're actually going to have enough now, I think. And then we'll do an Earth Shock. We'll show you this big damage here. 10,000 damage! Oh my god, that was beautiful. So yeah, you can see, it hits bloody hard. Really hard. That was a nice crit. That might be my highest crit in the alpha, actually. So yeah, 10,000 crit. Oh shit. So yeah, I think his talent has a lot of potential. Lots of really good like swap bursts, because it doesn't matter what target you use it on, but you can still use lightning bolt. That's the thing. You're not limited to just using the you're not limited just to Earth Shock. So this is a really good talent. It's something that gets better with the more proximate of Lava Surge, which is AoE also, which is quite cool. Anyway, Aftershock and Totem Mastery are the same. Now this is the biggest one. I think it's a nerf in a way, because these both give you either more Maelstrom or give you Maelstrom back. So this speeds up the spec quite a bit. But now that they're both in the same line, even if you pick one of these options, your Maelstrom gain will be much, much lower. So that kind of sucks in my opinion. I hope they put on different lines, but it makes sense to me because they're both Maelstrom based abilities. Which then means Master of the Elements doesn't make sense, because this does not change how you gain Maelstrom. What it should have is this one be a passive, this one is when you cast a spell you get a refund, and this one should be when you actually do Chain Lightning you get more of it by default. Something like that, because currently this does not make sense in this line. But it's a very cool talent, please don't remove it. So 45 is a brand new line completely. So because Capacitor Totem is baseline, Static Charge now makes it have a cooldown reduction per target hit, down to a maximum of 40 seconds. So 40 second stun is pretty good. Not crazy, but not bad either. I probably shouldn't have cast that. Because now I can't show the other spells. Spirit Wolf is pretty basic. When you're in Spirit Wolf form, when you're running around as a little ghost boy. Do I have his key bound? I do. When you're a ghost boy, you gain a stack of a DR buff and a movement speed. 1 second is 5% increased movement speed and 5% damage reduction, up to 20%. Which is pretty good to have. On top of your already pretty powerful Ancestral, or Astral Shift, sorry. This is not a bad little defensive here on top. A lot of fights you will have phases where you can't hit the boss, or you have just to run for long periods of time. And this is good for the increased movement speed, but also you just get damage reduction. One problem is that you've now lost Gust of Wind, which is pretty massive. So this is your best movement option, and it's not great. It doesn't give you movement speed straight away either, it only gives it to you. You cast the ability and then 1 second. If it was instant DR and movement speed, it'd probably be too good. Because then you'd instantly get 5% DR when you press the button. Which would be a little bit too unfun, but this is great. Because even though it's awkward to use, there will be situations where you need that 50% plus DR. And this will save you as a shaman, which is really good to see. And last but not least, Earth Shield. Which is really cool because Earth Shield has never been for Elemental Shamans an ability you could really spec into. Even in BC, it was too far down the tree. So, Earth Shield places a buff on any target you want. I don't know if you can do it in this guy, I can. And pretty much, if he gets hit, he gets healed. I also do more healing to that target, but that's not really relevant because you're not going to heal as a Elemental Shaman anytime soon. One target max, but yeah, really, really nice. Good for soloing, really good for Mythic Plus, and good for the expeditions also. That's a really nice talent overall. You could use it in raids maybe, but you probably won't have to reapply this because 306 health is pretty low, so yeah. Anyway, 60, a brand new talent here again, High Voltage. Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning can now cause a second elemental overload. Which sounds amazing, but I have yet to see a proc from Chain Lightning do more. He has to do 3 hits, because the initial hit, overload, then a second overload. I have it open right here, you'll see. 1 overload there, no overload, no overload, or 1 overload, sorry, a bit late. No overload, 1 overload. One overload. One overload. So I'm not too sure exactly if the numbers are combining or something. Like, it doesn't look like it's combining. It just isn't happening. We're just not getting any of these double procs, what you want to call them. So unless the chance to get a second one is based on your mastery again, but then you'd think it'd actually proc a fair bit. So this rate must be terrible. Whatever it is, it does not work very well in my opinion. Even with Chain Lightning, I haven't found many procs, and I'll show it off here, but it's hard to tell because Chain Lightning does the jumps per target hit from what I can tell. Your lightning bolts, blah blah, have a chance to cause a secondary cast. So if we go over here, it's very busy over here, that's why we're not here right now. You'll see here, the max we'll ever get, well, we don't really know. It's the, oh god, I guess this will work too. Here we go. Let's open this up, because there's going to be a lot of casts here. So, well, no procs to start with. So we got 2 overload procs that time. I've seen up to 6, that's 4. So I'm not too sure, cause I'm not a Shami Pro, but I'm assuming this one went 5. I don't think that's the talent. If someone knows exactly, that'd be really nice. But I'm pretty sure Chain Lightning works for per caster. So if it's bouncing this to this guy, they all have a chance. Is what I am under the assumption of. With a lag there from overload. That's why it procs so often, maybe, but none of those overload. Maybe it doesn't. But then why do you get random numbers between? Because we got 2, and obviously, why would you get 2? You should always get 4. You know. Why do we ever get a 2? Anyway, that's some boring stuff. So, let's move on. Storm Elemental is the same. Sorry, no, it's not. Storm Elemental is different. So, Storm Elemental on live gives you Maelstrom per second while it's active. Now it gives you haste. 3% haste per cast of Chain Lightning or Lightning Bolt. So, the problem here is that you want to cast fast, which you will end up doing. But if you use your spenders like Lava Burst and Earth Shock, you don't gain any buff. So I'm not too sure how this will play out. We'll show you it here. So it's like a build you could have. Because look, even though we're generating a lot, we're not going to gain much from the Lava Burst talent here. So, I don't know. People can work it out, not me that's smarter. So we'll just waste our stuff real quick here. We'll just spend it if we can. Here we go. We'll spend this. And then we'll open up with this. Well, we pros. Here we go. We're going to spam. We're going to ignore these lava shocks. I can't ignore it. I can't ignore it. So you see here, I have to keep reapplying my flames. I have to keep doing my lava burst. And obviously lava burst isn't a DPS decrease. Obviously it's not. But it's a little bit awkward to use sometimes. It feels a bit unfun when I'm already going ham with the chain lightnings or the lightning bolts. I have to reapply my flame shocks in. I want to get the lava burst increased damage earth shock here. So we've got 50% increased haste. And that doesn't even include the heroism. We must have been at 100% plus haste then. Which is pretty cool. It is really cool. I would like to see the buff sustain itself maybe after the elemental goes away for a couple of seconds, maybe 10 seconds or so. Because it kind of sucks just losing a massive 50% haste buff out of nowhere. Maybe make it like Lingering Insanity. Oh, look, a Shadow Priest. Here we go. Make it like Lingering Insanity for the Shadow Priest, where it degenerates over time, and that way it wouldn't feel so bad when you lose the buff instantly, because right now it kind of sucks where you're pounding the boss, and then all of a sudden you're doing nothing. But you see here, look at the breakdown. Lightning Bolt does a lot of hits. We cast pretty fast there. Man, actually, look at the Flame Shock dot. That was hitting pretty quick. Anyway, I guess actually it's one thing there, isn't it? It hits so fast with the haste, it would have went ham. That's really cool, actually. Anyway, that's all for this row. 75, as you saw before, as I said, Nature's Guardian, which is that ancestral healing trait, is now a talent. I don't think you'd ever pick this, but you maybe pick it sometime. It's really awkward to use because it heals you, but the thing is you lose the max health eventually. And, oh no, sorry, they changed it. It used to give you max health, and now it just heals you. So it's better. A heal isn't that good. It's okay. DR's better. The thing is, it's on a line where you get a raid heal or Windrush Totem, which are both very good, but not also always necessary. Now, Ancestral Guidance triggers a GCD, which is pretty annoying. I'm pretty sure on live it doesn't, but if it does, same deal. It kind of sucks having to use utility that costs a GCD. Now I know Windrush Totem has a GCD, but it's so overpowered that I think it's okay, where Ancestral Guidance is pretty average. Anyway, let's move on. Level 90, Earthen Rage and Primal Elementalist are the exact same. Primal Elementalist with the Storm Elemental boys get hype. Anyway, Ice Fury has been destroyed. I don't understand exactly what's going on here. So Ice Fury on live generates 30 Maelstrom, which is double of what we have here on the alpha, and increases the damage of your next 4 Frost Shocks by 400%, when now it's only 60%? Huh? What? And it's like last time I checked, and all the Wowhead and the MMO Champion, they all say 400%. And I know Frost Shock Ice Fury builds are massive. They're really big, because they're really cool. But it just does not... Oh god, there's a Warlock in here now. This doesn't do anything. We'll show you it here. I guess one good thing about it is just another button to press on your bars, but whatever. Here we go, with the Frost Shock here. And the damage is not great. That was a crit. Where is it? Frost Shock crit. 2400. And then there was another Frost Shock there, but 1700. Here's another one. I'm actually going to lose the buff because we just do it slowly. Anyway, because that's a generation being slow. It doesn't work right now because... Okay, let's look at the Frost Shock cost here. If we double all of them... Let's say we double 3 of them, because that's the same Maelstrom cost as an Earth Shock. We double 3 of them. That is then 600 times 3, 612, 180. Which is half the damage of an Earth Shock. Even with this, like, And let's say even if it was slightly more damage, doing 3 Frost Shocks versus doing 1 Earth Shock, that's 3 globals you have to waste. Where you could just dump your resources fast with an Earth Shock. So, the benefit of Ice Fury is that you can cast it while moving. That's the only benefit. Well, you can't have Ice Fury while moving. You cast Frost Shock while moving and no cooldown. But that seems pretty strict to pick this talent just for that. Like, it will do more damage spending 3 Frost Shocks than doing the 1 Earth Shock with this talent. But you have to cast Ice Fury to start with, then you have to cast it 3 times in a row, where you can just cast 1 Earth Shock. That's the problem. Anyway, level 100. Ascendance is the same. Stormkeeper is different. So Stormkeeper on live gives you 3 extra attacks. They all do 200% more damage with your Chain Lightning and Lightning Bolt. And only the first one had a chance to Elemental Overload, or a guaranteed chance I should say. So that's pretty different, because now we get 2 cast only, no damage bonus, but they're both guaranteed to overload. So on the live servers, you're guaranteed, I guess you could say, 4 hits of, say, Lightning Bolt. Because the first one double hits, so that gives you, that gives you 2, and then the second one is 3, and then 4. Where now you get double, so you get 4 every time. But the thing is that on the live version, you can obviously, those other ones have a chance to overload also. And your mastery, this is not very high mastery, this is like average. The chances are one of those will overload, maybe both. And also you lose out on 200% increased damage, which is a lot of damage. The only benefit, I guess, is that it looks cool, because you're guaranteed overload every time. But it doesn't do anything. We'll show you here. Look at the damage meter. It looks really cool. It looks really fun, but look at that Shadow Boy animation. Here we go. Here's Chain Lightning. Like, that is fun. That is cool. But it's the same as live, except I get 1 less cast. I guess the nice thing is that all hits are going to overload. And that's a major thing for the Chain Lightning portion anyways. It's a really good AoE talent. So it's definitely got nerfed AoE. I think AoE technically might be better now. I'm not exactly sure, because obviously your overload has less damage, but we're getting all of them overloading, which is really nice. But yeah, not too sure there exactly yet. Now, normally I say 100 talents don't matter what they do, because in terms of like if they're AoE or single target, or if they're like, you know, whatever, because they're 100 talents, they're allowed to be crazy, wacky, and overpowered or different. But the Elemental Shaman Unlimited Power talent bloody sucks. This thing is awful. So what it does is it gives you 2% increased haste for 10 seconds every time you overload. The duration does not get refreshed though. But it's on the same line as Stormkeeper, so let's pick this. Let's see how many procs we can get. Here we go, let's see if we can get a proc anyway. We have no procs. 1 proc. 2. Still on 2. 3. I'm waiting. So we gain 6% haste. 6% haste there. That's our level 100 talent. On average, that's then about a 3. And obviously, maybe some bad energy. Maybe we can get to 5 stacks. Maybe even then, let's say the average is in 5. Well, we're not even guaranteed to get it straight away anyway. So let's say we get 5. I'm pushing it for 5. Let's say we're getting 4% haste average. That's the same or worse than Ancestral Swiftness on the live server for Elemental, which gives you 6% haste by default. So this is worse than a level 70 or 60 talent, and it's your level 100 talent. There's no other ways to make yourself do this more often. Totem Mastery is the only upgrade here, and it's not great. It's 5% chance. If you could Stormkeeper and unlimited power, that's a different story completely, because you saw all those hits would gain, what, 8 every time on those ones there, so we'd get 16 times 2, 32% haste instantly, 2 GCDs. That sounds cool, that sounds fun. But the spec, well, this option does not work on this line. It should be moved somewhere else. And that's the problem I have with the Shaman right now. It feels like they've went, oh crap, Elemental Blast, Echo of Elements, Totem Mastery, Aftershock, they're all too OP. Let's force people to pick 2 of these out of 4 options. Let's add all these new options and shove them somewhere else. Well, now the problem is that the things you can do, you have possibilities here, but they're limited due to the talent they're in, the talent line. Unlimited Power Stormkeeper sounds bloody awesome. Can't do it. Having a build that is based around spenders, Totem Mastery, Aftershock, you can no longer do anymore. It just feels like they're just stopping you from doing things that it could be really, really fun, and that's not cool. And I feel like a lot of these talents anyway should be baseline. I really feel like Echo of Elements should be baseline. It used to be back in the day. But Echo of Elements makes Lava Burst not feel so clunky because it feels bad when you get a proc of Lava Surge at like 1 second to go. And even though it's instant cast, it's still a bit like, oh man, we're not going to get an earlier proc. And it feels awesome when you get a really early proc. But when you get an early proc at Echo of Elements, it feels awesome also. So it's not like it's a downside of getting it by default. I also think maybe one of these utility talents should be default, either Windrush Totem or Ancestral Guidance. Because right now, on this line here, you could just shove one of these things down here. Like, this could just be baseline. And make you choose between Earth Shield, Ancestral Guidance, and Nature's Guardian. That way they're all healing talents. Spirit Book can go away for all I care. Maybe you can even make, if you wanted to, you can make it baseline. Probably not. This also is a DR in a way. So you have heal, heal, heal. This should go away. This can go away or become a talent, but all specs in the game have their AoEs that have ways to reduce it, and this is one of them. So this should just be baseline, because everyone wants it, and make Windrush baseline, or make it a talent also, whatever. Because right now, they've got all these awesome talents here for Elemental Shaman, and they've shoved them all into like a couple of rows, and there's not enough cool options to pick right now. It feels really lame. Like, look at this 90 row. It's Big Badass Elemental, which is cool, but a passive. Earthen Rage is literally a passive, and Ice Fury. So you only have one quote-unquote fun option here. You don't have, like, all the ways to add more buttons to your class. They're competing against some very strong talents, like Elemental Blast is competing against Echo of Elements. Totem Mastery is competing against Aftershock. And I like having buttons to press sometimes, you know what I mean? But the thing is, obviously, we haven't got the full balance yet, so maybe some of these talents will be better. Maybe Elemental Blast would be garbage, we want it anyway. Who knows? It's definitely all over the place right now, I feel. They changed some of these talents, like maybe a month back or so. They moved, like, Aftershock has been the same line as Totem Mastery, stuff like that. And yeah, it's a little bit, a little strange, but we're still a long way away. I do like what they've done with a lot of the stuff, though. But I think the talents, which are normally the strong point for the Elemental Shaman, this time are actually the weak point, which is kind of sad. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time.